Hello, everyone, and welcome to PAEA's January WebinART, Feminist Pedagogy and 3D Printing in Middle School. Tonight, we will hear from Dr. Jennifer Motter, Dr. Karen Kiefer-Boyd, and Dr. Yenju Lin as they present their collaboration with digital technologies. Registered participants will receive a Google Form link via email after the event to fill out for their 1 hour of Act 48 credit. This webinar will be recorded and available at a later date on the PAEA website. Before we begin the webinar, we are asking participants to mute your microphones during the presentation, but feel free to keep your video on during the presentation so our presenters can see your beautiful faces. Those controls are located in the bottom left corner of the controls bar as well. We are leaving it up to you to decide on your level of privacy, as the recording will be housed on the PAEA website. We are also asking everyone to sign in the chat role. Please use the same name in which you registered for this event. The chat role can be found along the bottom in the controls bar as well. Signing in will ensure that you receive the Act 48 link. You may also use the chat role for questions during the presentation, and there will be a Q&A period after the presentation as well. Let's get this webinar rolling. Ladies, take it away.
Okay. So I will start here. Each semester since 2012, the three of us, all art educators, have collaborated in guiding pre-service art educators to interpret feminist art pedagogy and create art webquests for 7th to 9th grades. As of fall 2020, we have collaborated together for more than 12 semesters.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Motter. I'm the Pennsylvania Art Education Association Region 6 representative. I also teach at a rural Pennsylvania junior senior high school, working with students who are predominantly identified as being white and middle to low socioeconomic status according to the school district's demographic data.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Karen Kiefer-Boyd, and I'm professor of art education and women's gender and sexuality studies at Penn State University. I teach courses with students pursuing a career as K-12 art teachers, and the junior level undergrad course in which students create WebQuest for Dr. Motter's middle school courses is titled Visual Culture and Educational Technologies. And it's been wonderful that Jennifer has welcomed the students I work with into her class since 2012. And I believe that's the year that you also got your PhD. Both Yen and Jen got their doctoral degree at Penn State, and I was fortunate to work with both of them at that time.
And I'm Yenju Lin. I'm the third prong of this collaboration with expertise in developing curricula that integrates new media, particularly in art museum education settings. A socially responsive visual cultural webquest is an inquiry-oriented activity in which learners construct knowledge through interacting with, evaluating, and connecting diverse and sometimes contradictory resources on the internet in order to form new insights that they share in a tangible form, intended to make a positive difference in the world. The feminist pedagogical design of the webquest prompt middle school students to reflect on their own beliefs and to deconstruct societal values with attention to intersections of gender, race, and class, racist, sexist, homophobic, and transphobic indoctrinations plague white communities, oblivious or in denial of systematic inequity and injustice. So here we would like to start with a question for all of you to ponder. What is white privilege? And some responses we found, which is also on our screen, it's a privilege to lose interest in dismantling racism. Becoming aware of privilege should not be viewed as a burden or a source of guilt, but rather an opportunity to learn and be responsible so that we may work toward a more just and inclusive world. White privilege doesn't mean your life hasn't been hard. It means that your skin color isn't one of the things making it harder.
Building upon 3 pillars of critical race feminist curriculum and pedagogy, decentering norms, centering difference, and distributing leadership, we share our longitudinal study of facilitating curriculum development and implementation that is empowering for not only middle school students, but also teachers toward changing entrenched white privilege indoctrinations. We highlight the pre-service teachers' WebQuest homepages that you see here because they represent how feminist pedagogical principles can be employed as a teaching methodology regardless of the explicit emphasis on gender. The screenshots of 3 homepages of pre-service teacher created WebQuest also show how the visual design conveys the theme and the caption text raises a key question or exploratory prompt intended to pique curiosity and entice middle school students to engage with the WebQuest. The feminist principle of decentering norms challenges stereotypes of gender norms, recognizing that gender stereotypes are entangled with stereotypes of race, socioeconomic class, ableness, among other inscriptions that can and has led to disregard, devaluing, oppression, and violent acts towards those outside of privileged norms. Unfortunately, ingrained and normalized racist, misogynistic beliefs, values, and behaviors are still prevalent in schools, at home, and in the workplace. The Things We Leave Behind WebQuest helps students to consider assumptions and biases as they reflect on the impact of the past and present injustices, that is, decentering norms. The feminist principle of centering difference is an effort to challenge and end racist, misogynistic ways of knowing, thinking, and acting. To do so, feminist educators seek equitable opportunities for all in the classroom by valuing each student's voice and lived experiences, and by introducing students to artists whose works and life experiences differ from the art historical canonized artist. The Equality for All WebQuest values and centers difference. 3 art education collaborators researching feminist pedagogy in a middle school context through a collaborative form of distributing leadership in opposition to patriarchy, which is grounded in the belief of male hierarchical control rather than connection, sharing, and cooperation. In our collaboration, we also encourage distributed leadership in how the pre-service art educators worked together to develop their group's WebQuest and in their design of the WebQuest for middle school students' participation in collaborative projects in which leadership is distributed. The project prototype WebQuest involves student collaborative projects in which each group member contributes by selecting a role in prototyping a product, thus learning a distributed leadership model.
Preparation included learning about 3D printing as feminist art processes and content for developing feminist art curriculum. As an art-making process, the 3D printing technology allows artists to materialize their imagination in tangible form or reinvent physical objects in a relatively short amount of time as opposed to spending hundreds of hours to carve, cast, model, or assemble. I guided the pre-service art teachers to design art lessons as WebQuest for middle school students to collaborate in a 3D printing project in a way that embodies feminist principles and enacts feminist pedagogy. Typically, understanding of feminism will be from what we learned from patriarchal media, although patriarchy is unmarked. Patriarchy, with its ubiquitous invisibility, like the air we breathe, is a powerful influence on our behaviors and beliefs, while feminism is misconstrued from how it is marked in patriarchal media. Feminist art pedagogy challenges exclusion, misrepresentation, and marginalization of people based on gender. Feminist art pedagogy investigates how gender is constructed, represented, and treated. Feminist art pedagogues include the vantage points of those who have been excluded, value personal experience, and self-representation. Feminist art pedagogues know teaching is a political act and knowledge is value-laden and seek multiple perspectives and distributed leadership. Teaching is a political act and value-laden in that what is taught, emphasized, or excluded from the curriculum, that those decisions are political. Moreover, because 3D printing is still a highly male-dominated field, it is important to show examples of feminist artists who integrate 3D printing in their art. And we've all done a lot of research to try to find such artists. And on the screen, you can see this work here then, and I'll tell you a little bit about the artist, feminist artist and activist, Morashin Aliyara, an artist introduced to the pre-service art teachers. And she considers her use of 3D sculpting processes of appropriating and reconstructing existing cultural objects as a feminist and activist practice. Aliyari uses 3D scanners and 3D printers as her tools of investigation in her art project titled She Who Sees the Unknown, to explore the symbolic meanings behind traditions and myths of dark-skinned goddesses of Middle East origin, and to inquire into the effects of digital colonialism and other forms of contemporary oppression. Digital colonialism refers to how information and belief systems are dictated and controlled by the technology empires. We certainly see much of that today. Using open source software to create counter narratives against digital colonialism, Aliyari attempts to restore and redistribute forgotten or misinterpreted cultural historical artifacts. In She Who Sees the Unknown, Aliyari devises a narrative through practices of appropriating, archiving, collaging, meshing, and 3D printing a series of statues based on ancient images of feminist deities. By telling the stories of these overlooked feminist deities, Aliyari attempts to challenge the dominant social and cultural narratives. And I got introduced to her when she came as a guest presenter at Penn State, one of the Anderson lectures, and these little sculptures were printed and given out to those that came to the reception. So if I was at a home, I would hold up my little replica of one of these deities, which she distributed to us.
This is the screenshot of one of the web quests created by the pre-service teachers. Creature Creators is a web quest that incorporates 3D printing technology as a part of the art making process. This process invited the middle school students to participate in activities that value their lived experiences. This web quest highlights application of feminist principles to art education in ways that shape the curriculum and pedagogy. It demonstrates how WebQuest connects students' experiences with the newly introduced feminist critique on visual culture of fictional creations. The curriculum design of the Creature Creators WebQuest begins with a YouTube video of the Frankenstein It's Alive scene to motivate students create creature creation and explorations of personal beliefs, gendered identities, and physical appearances that embody the projection of uniqueness. The art-making process was organized as 3 missions and culminated in a 3D printed sculpture. During mission 1, students reflected on personal beliefs and gender-based experiences while identifying characteristics of humans, animals, and creatures. In mission 2, students conducted their own research by visiting an online creature gallery and identifying creatures of interest who would inspire their own unique creature creations. By making connections with ideas and concepts with which students are familiar with, the Creature Creations web quest shows middle school students how cultural and gender perceptions are shaped and imprinted by visual imagery. The web quest then invites students to reflect and challenge the constructions of culture and gender trait by designing a visual object, which is a 3D printed creature.
Creature creators require students to mindfully and collaboratively create fictional characters who defy gender traits, age, race, and class stereotypes. Working in small groups, students share their ideas and challenge their perceptions of their classmates during the creature brainstorming and design phases. The creatures designed by middle school students possess some stereotypical male and female characteristics, yet most appear to be non-binary gender expressions. An example of male privilege is I have a boyfriend being the only thing that can stop someone from hitting on you because they respect another male-bodied person more than they respect your rejection and or lack of interest. In popular culture, such as Beauty and the Beast, while the characters don't actually state what is in the speech bubbles, the visual narrative conveys such ideas. The male character, large and beast-like, states, "I think you're being too sensitive." The young woman who is thinking, "I think you're trying to use your privilege to undermine my argument without actually addressing it." If you can use public bathrooms without stares, fear, or anxiety, you have cisgender privilege.
Creature creators ask students to collaboratively navigate a web quest designed specifically for their class. Take turns serving in various roles during the research, planning, and design process, and contribute to the final design of group projects that were 3D printed and then colored using acrylic paints or Sharpie markers. In Mission 3 of Creature Creators, students brought their individual perspectives and research together to collaboratively design a creature using Tinkercad. Each group member contributed at least one body part to their group's digitally designed creature. The WebQuest project showed evidence of pre-service teachers' understanding of centering difference, a pedagogical practice of empowering through difference that enable participants to make and take informed choices of their work and learning and to exercise inclusive practices. The curriculum process and Creature Creators guide students to reflect on their personal beliefs and experiences of gender expectations and explore non-binary gender fluidity. The middle school students held lively discussions about their creature attributes and their functions. Their characters tended to be combinations of male and female, human bodies, as well as insect, bird, and animal bodies. In this case, the pre-service art educators successfully translated feminist principles and practices into their WebQuest art curriculum and pedagogical design. If you go ahead and move to the next slide, Yen. Oh, I think Yen is oh, Yen just, oh, there you are. Okay. Do you want to, can you go to the next slide, Yen?
Yes, let me reshare.
Okay.
Next one.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and what you see on the screen here is a list of many. There's been, as you can imagine, there's been many WebQuest created since 2012. And these are some that, we highly recommend. Jennifer has tried them with her with her middle school students. And, there's a lot of feedback and everything before they are implemented in her classroom. And so we're going to put the link so that you can look at later all these different WebQuest here and a few screenshots as you can see here. I'm also going to put the link in the chat for the top one there, which is from 2020. And last fall, we experimented with augmented reality. So we moved from 3D printing to augmented reality, and not ready to present on that one yet, but I'm going to share the URL with you in case you're interested with that. So what we're going to do is we're each going to open up and kind of walk you through 3 different of these web quests and pose a question and hope to hear from from you in dialogue about these ideas of centering difference, decentering norm, and distributed leadership. So with that, Yen, you want to move to yours.
Okay.
That you're going to show.
And now I will switch to.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're seeing here is creature creators, which we have talked about a bit earlier. This all the web quests, most of them we guided pre-service students to work out their projects using those website building software that's available online. And particularly this one is built with Wix. So as we mentioned earlier, this web quest, it begins with a video. To motivate students' creature creation and exploration of personal beliefs, gender identity, and physical appearances. And then the whole web quest is organized as 3 missions. With the first mission, in the mission 1, which is the first task student will do in the classroom. They are given the task to make a sketch of a self-portrait while reflecting on the prompts such as what makes something human, what makes something animal, what makes something a creature. And then they work out their own self-portrait as a reflection on how they see themselves. And then they proceed to the next mission. In this second mission, they are guided to create their unique creature by researching through mainly by first looking at this creature gallery that the pre-service teacher curated online so that they can find inspirations and to identify the characteristics that can incorporate into their creature creations. And then they will move on to the final mission, which is building their own unique creature. They are introduced with the 3D printing design software, the Tinkercad, and then they work in groups to create a 3D printed sculpture that incorporate ideas from individual members. And then in this web quest, each web quest, students are also have this teacher's page where they have introduction or they have evaluation criteria, and for them to think through their curriculum design. And now I'm going to switch back to our slides. Creature creators create this opportunity for students to center difference by reflecting on the construction of cultural and the gender trait, and challenges them with a task to visualize their ideas and responses. And here we would like to hear from your own experience from your classroom. How do you engage conversations about and or across differences in your classroom? What are the strategies you find effective? Or have you encountered any pushback or resistance in your teaching? And if any one of you would like to share with us. And we have the hyperlink of this web quest on the screen, and is it also in the chat?
Yes, I just added to the chat the hyperlink for the creature creators, and then also the link to the long list that I showed that has the page with many of them linked to it, and then our latest with augmented reality. So there's 3 links, and one way to grab those is if you click on the 3 ellipses or 3 dots toward the bottom. You can save the chat and grab it that way, and maybe they could also be linked on the website, or I guess in the recording that would be as well. But okay, so Chris can't share with us by speaking. Did you want to chat a little bit? The question: how do you engage conversations about and across differences in your classroom? We would really like to hear from you and how you do that. And then Chris, I'll just read it from whatever you post in there. Angela and Linda, Vanessa, Amanda. It's a small group, so we really want to hear from you about how you address this, if you do, and see what other people are doing about, how do you hold conversations about and across differences in your classroom? Are there any lessons or curriculum that you bring in? I think Vanessa's about to speak.
Yeah, I teach a unit on diversity, the different things that make us unique, and those could be our race, our gender, sexual orientation, all those things. And each that makes us different has a different project that goes with it. One thing that I thought was really interesting the last time I taught that unit, which I think was 2 years ago, my boys did not want to do the project that went with gender. And they're like, could I do it on female empowerment? And I'm like, well, you don't know what it's like to be a girl and to be a woman. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, I don't want to express what makes a man feel powerful. And so I thought it was interesting that we're starting to see this shift, where the first time I taught that lesson, which was probably 5 years ago, they didn't really seem to have that big of an issue. They're focusing on men in history who did courageous things, and even a few years later, they were just like, could we focus on women that did courageous things and helped history?
Thank you. That's interesting, Vanessa. And there was a few moments where your voice cut out, and so I hope I gathered everything that you said. But did I understand that you're saying that 5 years or so, when you did this lesson, that students were comfortable identifying men who were heroes, and now the males, the young men in your class are interested in presenting empowered or women as heroes? Is that what I heard? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the project was whatever gender you identify with.
I see.
To look throughout history of people of your gender, how they display power and strength within that gender. And the boys were I don't want to touch this. I don't want to touch being an empowered male. And I thought it was really interesting that I was it's not a bad thing to be a man, but you need to also empower. We all need to feel empowered. And we all think we bring to the world. But I thought that was interesting that they kind of feel bad about being male.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot to it because there's, I think that's fascinating. Just this is exactly why we wanted a conversation to see, what youth are thinking and doing, and in your classroom, in your environment. And so this issue of gender is masculinity can be as confining and narrow as can be, and even what is empowering, or the notion of what is powerful or hero or something might need to be explored in a variety of ways, in thinking about maybe it's the notion of upstander, as Linda Stein's artwork that I've been working with a lot, but she's come up with this, what she calls the 4 Bs, and it's bully, bullied, bystander, and brave upstander. And to think about, experiences we've had, bullying and stuff, and then the brave upstander. And in the process of doing that, we start to, recognize that in order for a person to be a brave upstander, they can't just go in and tell the bully to just, stop. So what I'm trying to say is that the kind of perceptions that perhaps your lesson, in working out what is, powerful or empowering or a hero and such, there might need to be some kind of exploration of various ways to think about that. And so in this upstander comic lesson that I've worked with people of different ages, the fascinating thing is the discussion about what is an upstander, because you can't just say, everyone be nice to each other. Just, you can't dogmatically just say those kinds of things, but you have to, usually the bully is often somebody who's bullied themselves, either at home or otherwise. And so sort of really shifting to kind of, bringing that person into whether it might be finding their strength, their, what they contribute, and changing the story quite a bit. As we know, with like what's considered classroom management, we have to de-escalate it a lot by the de-escalation happens, which is an upstander kind of action, is by not raising ourselves above and above, but probably just sitting down. And that's what's worked for me, is just to sit down, actually sometimes lower than the height of the student there. They might be very anxious running around, but they tend to kind of then, because I'm settled, they settle, stop, and we have that conversation. So I'm just, it's just, I just think it's fascinating what you bring up. And there's, I don't know if there's some other comments or, other comments, Jennifer or Yen or others in the Zoom tonight. I'm looking at Angela's comment here too.
I see that Chris and Angela both commented about their different experiences in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. So Angela, I have tried see, think, wonder activities to help break down artworks from different backgrounds from my rural, predominantly white school. Yeah, we really need to expand those views. Try to also ensure that I am highlighting both male and female artists, and I'm still learning about what presumptions, opinions my students have, since this is my first year at this school. My high school classes are also mostly female, so I'm trying to avoid putting my male students on the spot. Yeah, a lot of it is to have a greater range of what it means to be a male, what it means to be a female, and because those stereotypes, the narrowness of it can keep us trapped in that, and there's a lot of pressure from youth and students on each other. I've worked with 4th and 5th graders and talking about the pressure of what they need to do to be a boy or a girl, and size, and race, and so many differences. And Art 21 artist, as Linda D brings up, and in fact, some of these WebQuest link to Art 21 art is that's specific to the direction of the lesson. Yeah, thanks. Jennifer, you want to go on and show the next one?
So I was okay.
Yeah, you stop your sharing and then Jennifer can share hers.
Okay, so can everyone see my project prototype web quest currently displayed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. So I chose this particular web quest to show you because this is one that I've adapted many times. And what I really love about it is that it's a great example of distributing leadership, and it really involves the students in taking on different leadership roles. So I'll click on the home page and scroll down so that you can see that. And so let me just move this over a little bit. So there's examples of different prototypes and trying to guide students through different types of, there's links here to show different types of design careers. So many resources are provided throughout this web quest as well. So they're basically introducing the students to design and helping to guide their brainstorming about a prototype. What I want to do next is I'll click on about the teachers really quick. This is where the pre-service teachers share information about themselves for my middle school students to experience. And I'm sharing this with you just because it is a page that really motivates my students when they see these college students who are creating this web quest for them. They get excited and even more engaged in the project. So this one, if we click on the schedule, you can see it's broken down into steps. So the first step being brainstorming. I'm going to focus on the second step, which is group up. So you can see here, this is where students are required to get in a group of 3, and according to the instructions, each day the students will rotate jobs so that each person will get an experience in each position of designing a prototype. And so I like that this particular web quest does require students to experience different types of leadership positions. The first position is being a group leader. Next, we have a journalist, someone who documents the prototyping experience for the day. And then finally, the designer, the main person in charge of creating that prototype. Students used Tinkercad as well as Thingiverse to create their 3D models. They designed them using those online applications prior to sending them to the 3D printer for printing. And I'll scroll down just to show you that there is a tutorial to Tinkercad linked here. And I know Karen's going to share a Tinkercad tutorial with you shortly. But this web quest really does provide students with all the instructions and resources they need to be successful in the design process of a 3D printed prototype that each group member contributes to while taking on these different leadership roles. So if we go, Yan, can we go back to the presentation, and I'll share my question with everyone. Yeah, let me stop sharing, sorry. There we go. Okay, thank you. So the question that I have for everyone, and you could respond either in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to share. We'd love to hear from you. My question for you is, how do you engage your students in distributing leadership in your visual arts classroom? So I'm just wondering if you have any examples that you've tried. I'd love to hear them. Again, please feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat if you'd like to share.
I know Jennifer really values her teaching that her students collaborate. And so this distributed leadership is collaboration. And it's recognizing that everyone can be a leader, but in different ways. Everyone can contribute and have strengths that they bring to the project, but in different ways. And I think that parallels a lot about life and how we need to work together and, recognize not people's deficits, but recognize what they can bring to the tasks, to the community, to the project. So we feel that collaboration, this notion of collaboration as distributed leadership is, valuable beyond the art lesson. And thus we really want to emphasize that within this project. So we're wondering if you do distributed leadership in your own teaching, and if you have some examples of that, we'd love to hear from you. I'm going to read what Jill just put in here. I have 3 levels of students in my ceramics classes. I encourage my advanced students to teach my beginning students. They really enjoy showing off. Oh yeah, that, actually I became a teacher a lot because since 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, whenever I was at the round table and I got to teach the group, and then as I got older, I realized if I really want to learn something, teach it. And so it's really a way to become a lifelong learner, is if you are a teacher, you're constantly learning. And but then as I became a teacher, I recognized I can't have all the learning. I can't hoard all that learning. I have to let students teach each other. Otherwise, I get all the benefit if I'm doing all the teaching. So that's my way of thinking about this peer teaching and a different way of collaboration. Yes, it's a way of assessing too. They find out how much they know, and then if you're observing that. Are there any projects that anyone feels is successful with the collaboration, or pitfalls of distributed leadership or collaboration? Or do you even think of your collaboration in those terms of distributed leadership? So we're very interested in hearing from you. Oh, Flipgrid, I've started using that too. We hope these WebQuest can be used by teachers. And when I show you Tinkercad shortly, you'll see how these free apps can be used anywhere. And if they're incorporated into a meaningful lesson, all the better. But yeah, I like Flipgrid. You can have questions, you can pose questions, they can respond by speaking and by video, and it can be private within the group too. Anyone else have some examples? Chris, one student in her summer class is the screenwriter, storyboarder, another is the animator, and the third is the cameraman or camera person. The next day they switch jobs. Yeah, so you start to see all the different roles, and you're learning those roles, and then my guess is they can actually help teach the other if they were in that role the day prior. Yeah, really great examples. Just keep thinking if you have some other examples. It's really very interesting what each of you are doing. But I'm looking at the time, maybe we should switch to me screen sharing right now. Okay, so let me stretch this out to find the share screen. There we go. So I'm sharing a web quest by Victoria Davenport, and she was in my class in 2017. Interesting, it's about masking, but unmasking identity. I think there's lots of relevancy and how one might be able to think about this in at today's time, where we are all masked out in public, and we unmask at moments like this when we can join our students or each other on Zoom. As you can see, I really encourage them to, if you looked up the Bernie Dodge, the 1997 web quest, they all have the same kind of introduction and project and conclusion, and they have very generic kind of titles. And I really work with the students to have the main headers, and then they have, some of them have subheadings that are really relate to the theme. And some do better than others, and we keep working on that. And of course, they learn from each year, and I think they just get better and better. So you're going to see this kind of here at the top, that there's a pattern, but there's different words in the way that they create these web quests. These web quests are for the students, and they learn to talk directly to the students, first person, and so it is for the students, like, welcome, today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. Of course, that's only Dr. Seuss would talk like that. But what Victoria does here is there's a video of her speaking the lessons. So there's a little bit of embodiment, a little bit of the teacher there, the little bit of, this warmth and such of her as she shows some things in the space that she's at as she's talking. But she also provides the transcript of what she has to say there too. And so she, as a teacher might, welcome and say who they are. And she's, talks about traditionally masks are used to disguise identity, but in this project, we're going to accentuate our personality using a mask as our tool. How perfect for today, right? It's just absolutely perfect. And you wouldn't have to 3D print this one, but it could be cloth, but it could actually be, drawing on one of the masks that are you buy or have been given. And so she, first step is to explore the resources below. And so all these web quests, although they're unfortunately, what is she using, Wix or something? Oh no, she's using WordPress. And so unfortunately, there's some advertisement in there. You can see that. I'm going to X that out of there, see if I can get rid of it. So there's this from the Museum of Modern Art, how artists explore identity. And she finds really, or each of the students with these web quests, they find, no more than 3 minutes, really short pieces that a person could, students could explore. Kara Walker, Nick Cave, MoMA Investigating Identity, Brooklyn Museum of Art, just choice things that help one to think about identity and artists that explore identity. And she suggests having a Pinterest, a vision board, she calls it, and she tells what it is. And all the students have to do, my students that are planning to be teachers, they all have to try the lesson and have examples and such like that. So this one begins with that. And then it goes to, can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be, because that's, whether it's gender, race, or whatever, this is the kind of person you're supposed to be, may not fit exactly how you feel on the inside. And so she explores in this, in language. We work very much on that. We're speaking to the middle school student. What is identity? And then she defines that. And in this case, the vision board is a concept map of one's identity. So she gives lots of examples of concept mapping, and then she does one herself, and she does a concept map of who she is. And she gives some prompts for the mapping process. So they're very, user-friendly, and yet, have enough of the detail. And then we get to the creating part. So this is all the thinking and exploring and such. And then she has, she set up Tinkercad so that there's the ID and the password, so that everybody can get into the same one, same Tinkercad. Now Tinkercad is free to use. It's a free app and everything. And what I have, I'm going to click just so that you know what Tinkercad is. I have a 3-minute video, and I think it shows you what, even if these aren't 3D printed, they can make these sculptural, they can make sculpture. Say they don't have any material, they're working at home because of COVID and they don't have the clay. I know some of the teachers are doing simultaneous, where they have to have those that are in the class, but also those in the screen. So they can't even use clay with those in the classroom because that has to be the same thing that those on Zoom can use. So here's something students could use. And
Welcome to Tinkercad, a 3D design tool that runs in
can
your
you hear and
browser.
see?
This tutorial video will teach you the basics of using Tinkercad. What makes Tinkercad unique is the focus on constant learning. You can create something from scratch, follow a quest that teaches you new skills, or find a thing someone else has designed that you want to study and perhaps modify. To start a new design, click the Design a New Thing button. This is the editor. The arrows on the left are part of the view controls. On the right, there are basic shapes you can use for your design. You can create things by dragging shapes to the work plane. To move the view to another angle, click the arrow buttons. You can also press and hold the right mouse button down while moving the mouse. Zoom the view by pressing the plus and minus buttons, or by using the mouse scroll wheel. You can freely move shapes along the work plane. Use the top handle to change the height of the shape, and use the corner handles to change its size along the work plane. Use the arrows to rotate the shape. Move the shape up and down by using the arrow handle on top of the shape. If you select several shapes, you can modify them simultaneously. Select multiple shapes with box select, or by holding the Shift key down and clicking on the shapes you want to select. If you press and hold the Shift button while scaling, Tinkercad will resize the shape equally in all directions. Use copy and paste to duplicate shapes. You can use any shape to make holes. Just select the shape and press the hole button in the toolbar. It's a good idea to group related shapes together to make further editing easier. You can always ungroup shapes later. There it is. When you're done with designing, click Save and Close. After that, you can give a name to your new thing. Your design is now ready to be 3D printed or shared with friends. Design a new thing of your own and have a great time learning at tinkercad.com.
Okay, I got to turn that off in the background or keep playing. Oh, I think I did. Okay, so I stopped sharing and, oops, no, I didn't. Okay, just a second, I got to find that wherever it is.
Hey friends, welcome back to
sorry.
part 4 of a series.
I thought I had it off there. Okay, yes, so let's come back to the PowerPoint, and you're probably all there and I'm not. Okay, there I am. Okay, yeah, so you know, it gives you an example of Tinkercad. Has anyone used Tinkercad before with their classes or just for your own exploration? Anyone use that? And if you could put the link to that particular, the unmasking identity one. So I have a screenshot here, and I've added some few images here of sort of contemporary work here about masking. Eleanor Antine, who does a lot of masking and including, whoops, go back one, including the regendering herself in this particular, to the left, that first image. And then we have Eleanor Roosevelt. Of course, she's got the rainbow mask on, and the this I Can't Breathe and Black Lives Matter and the kinds of issues about race I wanted to bring up there. And then Judy Chicago posted this Instagram piece. The bottom is called Power Play, and it's work by it's a large painting, three large paintings next to each other, and it's now at the Palmer Museum of Art at Penn State. And during the Kavanaugh hearings, she put Lindsey Graham and Grassley there, and then Kavanaugh is in the middle. And her paintings, I mean, her artwork there, her painting, she did that in the 1980s when there was such ruckus over the dinner party and how it was argued over the Congress. So those the three faces of man, and then she just kind of compares it with somewhat contemporary times with what's going on here. So how are our expressions masked as well? So I have a couple questions here. I'm looking at the time though, but I'll raise the questions for us to think about. How do your students hide their identity by looking or acting in ways that doesn't necessarily reflect who they are or want to be? So I think in a lot of ways, we do, especially middle school and such, you sometimes, hide who you really are to be accepted. You want to conform. And so this notion of centering difference, if we really value that since early grades and emphasize that again in the middle school, is important. And my other question is, how does your curriculum decenter norms? And that is, how does it decenter stereotypes of gender, ethnicity, race, among others? So I don't know if if you have something that you would like to respond about if and how your curriculum might decenter norms. Those are the three areas that we kind of talked about as far as feminist pedagogy, this centering difference, decentering norms, and distributed leadership as three main pillars of feminist pedagogy. So some thoughts that you might have about what you do, we'd very much be interested in that. And I'm sure others would be as well. I see some people maybe typing or thinking about. Some ways that you do that in your in art lessons or curriculum, that you decenter, the stereotypes are also often as this is what a girl is supposed to do, this is what a boy is supposed to do, this is and even the binary notions of boy and girl. This is how I perceive white people and Black people, and these are the stereotypes. Any comments or any examples of students hiding their identity that you see happening by thinking about conforming? Any thoughts on that?
I think more this year than any, they haven't been hiding their identities. Like, I have quite a few who, I mean, I'm not sure where they're at in the process, or like, I don't know, like where they are with it, but like I have quite a few who are listed in my grade as being females, but they go by a male name, or have told me that they're non-binary and are just very open with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think like we're starting to see that shift where they're not feeling so masked.
Yes. So the fact of, they are unmasking, that's exactly what this web quest is about unmasking. Well, that's really wonderful, Vanessa, that you're seeing that shift happening where students are more open about unmasking their identity. So I'm not sure if if this might be the kind of lesson or something of. I know Jennifer, she does it kind of as a student. The students or team of students prepare it the first time when she does it that semester. But I know many of them you've done other semesters and then you've adapted it depending upon the group and such. And so they're very they're sort of like starting points for they could be used as is, or they are starting points. But yeah, I think that hopefully things are changing, and the kind of that students are feeling that they are centering difference and decentering norms and hopefully distributing leadership. Okay, so there's a couple other, Linda, the artist and the Art 21 excellent series, and list some of the artists that are really good choices there. Jordan Castell and Dominique Chambers. And then Angela says, my district allows students to choose between face-to-face or virtual instruction. So I've noticed that the students who want to disguise themselves are the ones who have elected to stay virtual and manipulate their video, how much the student and others can see. Yeah, so that you can think of that as a mask in and of itself. And sometimes we use, masks to hide, and sometimes we use masks actually to show who we are, especially with the physical masks that we actually wear. And let's see, and Alicia Wormsley in PGH. Students are open, accepting, but may not want us to share with their parents. Regarding gender gender transitioning primarily. Yeah, so there's a lot of possibly where the students are at, their parents may not be at that same place at all. Well, it is 8:02. If you'll go to the last slide again, just go to our last concluding slide.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
University and the public school partnership, which involve curricular development and the pedagogical experiences for pre-service teachers that support in-service teachers, are ever more necessary during a time of hybrid and remote teaching due to the pandemic. Moreover, given the U.S. growing social awareness of racial and gender discrimination and injustices, and awareness due to the monumental Black Lives Matters and the Me Too movements, feminist art pedagogies of decentering assumptions of normative identities, centering difference as enriching and valuable and distributed leadership toward developing shared agency are educational goals necessary for building civic engagement and the resilience vital to achieving a vibrant future. And thank you all for attending to our presentation. If you want to learn more about our collaboration, we have published our collaborations in the Journal of Curriculum and Pedagogy, if you want to check that out online.
And the title of that article is WTF ? Which stands for Where's the Feminism, of course. Feminist Pedagogy in 3D Printing and a Pre-Service Virtual Field Experience. And that just came out in, was it December 2020? Pretty late in the year, in 2020. Yeah, so thank you all for being with us, and we'll put our emails in here if you'd like to contact us or share some more responses to the questions that we raised or anything for any other reason there. And we really appreciate you spending an hour on your Sunday evening and this time where, well, time just seems so different these days anyway. So I don't even know how to describe it. Say, is it long? Is it short? Is it what? It just is different. Yeah. So with that, we'll, if there's any questions or comments, we'd love to hear them, or we can read them from the chat. And for those that need to depart, then we thank you so much for being here. And Yen, you could stop sharing the screen right now too, so we can see everyone. Yeah.
If you have questions for our presenters, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or type in the chat. It's your choice.
Angela, what do you teach middle school? Oh, the full range. Okay. Have you seen, Angela, are you seeing, I don't know how long you've been teaching, but are you seeing some of the changes that Vanessa has talked about tonight? First year teaching, okay. So you're not going to see the changes. So thank you, Vanessa, for sharing. How long have you been teaching, Vanessa?
This is my 9th year teaching. It's my 10th overall.
Yeah,
But
so start to see a change. Yeah, I think that's so fascinating what you shared about the change. Jill, do you see changes in your teaching? I mean, the students?
Do. I think students are becoming more open. Now, I do work in an inner city school district, so we already have significant diversity, but there's still stereotypes. You know, they still think things should be a certain way here and there, but I think that as the world is becoming more open about people's identity and how they see themselves and how they interact with the world, I think students are becoming a little bit more open as well. And I think they're starting to realize that you know, we can break past these established gender roles of the, you know, the past decades. And I think they're starting to realize that it doesn't matter. Like, they can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter if they're a boy or they're a girl, they're black or they're white. I think they're starting to realize that, you know, they're the, I think, literally, I mean, they are our future, but I think they're starting to realize, some of them, especially because I teach high school, that they truly are the future. They are the ones that have the power to start making changes. So I am starting to see that a little bit.
Wow, that's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And I think that's a really wonderful way to end our conversation too, on that a high note, that they are our future, and they are, you know, enacting the very things that that the three of us have been presenting and working so hard, and, you know, since 2012, because we know, like for me, the teachers that I'm preparing, the pre-service teachers, that they will impact those students. And you know, that it also starts with what's allowed and what's talked about by the teacher, and the kind of curriculum that the teacher brings to that. So I try to make that change in that way. And then, of course, we interact with Jennifer's students in Johnstown. So that's, you know, kind of a rural area of Pennsylvania. And we've been very happy with the kind of responses of, you know, this, you know, why we called it, you know, where's the feminism, that the responses to that of interest over time, not everyone, but some of the male students, you've had some wonderful examples where they just kept going and going at home. This was when we pre-COVID, and taking projects further. Jennifer, did you want to share further?
I've just been pleasantly surprised, and I have to agree with you know, some of the other teachers who mentioned that they're seeing students be more open, and I've seen that as well, you know, even at a rural school district. And this is my 14th year of teaching overall. And so, you know, I agree. I think that things are shifting for the better, and you know, I'm seeing students, you know, start to embrace who they are more, but of course, there are still those stereotypes. I teach at a school where athletics are really valued, you know, and so it's nice that we're seeing things start to shift, though, and other interests are valued, and you know, students feel more free to, you know, express themselves and explore their interests, you know, during this important time, you know, while in middle school or at a junior high school. So you know, I agree. It's good to see positive changes, and hopefully we'll continue to see that. And I think that there are, you know, some role models now, such as Kamala Harris, who will encourage students to envision futures that they may not have otherwise.
And by the way, I wanted to point out Jennifer's background, even though it's a virtual background there. She's not really in her classroom right now, but those are the 3D printers there that we were thinking about, how, you know, those students that are only Zoom and or Google, whatever they're doing, Meetup, whatever it is that they're using, that are virtual in interaction with their class, that they could actually use Tinkercad, design something, and send it to the school, because it's all through cyberspace and sending it through the school, and it could get printed there. And then they would have a physical something that they could pick up, or it could, they're small, and you have to keep the scale a little bit small at this point there, both the printers and the time. Mostly it's the time that it takes for printing. And then they could even be mailed to them.
Yes, absolutely.
Vanessa or Angela, have you ever done 3D printing in your teaching?
We have I teach at the high school level, and we have a plastics class that like they handle all that. So it's available at the school, but it's not part of my curriculum.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was at a PAEA conference. It was the one when we went to Falling Water. So whatever year that was, when we were in that area of towards Pittsburgh, and I was on a bus with a bunch of teachers, and they were talking about there's 3D printers in their schools, and they have no idea what to do with them. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to work with the pre-cert teachers so that when they get out there, they'll know what to do with them, because they're, you know, at first they're sort of a novelty, and now like all the schools have it or have access to it. But typically, you know, that to have lessons around that and such lessons as what the students, what we've been presenting tonight, as well as you know, really looking at trying to bring in, you know, not just women artists, but feminist artists as examples like the one that I showed you. And, you know, we have a presentation of several of artists, and we keep looking and adding to our repertoire of who we can introduce to students. And that helps to shift that notion away about, you know, bringing girls into comfort level with technologies and sciences, and that they can achieve in those ways. And that's changing as well. But you know, there's still somehow some kind of barriers, internalized barriers or family barriers in pursuing some of these fields and technologies and sciences. Yeah, the shop teacher has a 3D printer. See, it's often, and I wanted something with him possibly for next school year. Yeah, so, well, please, you've got that link with all these others, and that's a way to sort of start to think about, hopefully, you know, you can look at several, or, you know, or choose one, but they are starting points for you. And if, you know, you know, who knows how much we're going to be virtual in the future, but we certainly are now. You know, in some way or another, we never know. I know Jennifer says, you know, she'll get a call at 8 at night or something. Okay, you know, the school's going to be closed now. We've got cases and stuff, and so it's kind of up and down for a while. And so the web quest might be very helpful in that. I know teachers are just scrambling to try to put lessons together that can be introduced with the video, and you can see what we showed, you know, the time that it takes for somebody to create all those videos that she has, and the transcript and all the links and the choices and such. So there is a lot of time that those students work with. And, you know, not only, you know, I give feedback and critique, but Jennifer comes in 3 times in the beginning and gives the context of her teaching, and then about the middle before she actually implements, to give feedback about the web quest, if they would work, how long they might take, you know, so all of Jennifer's experience, her 14 years experience of teaching. And then finally at the end, in telling the students that I'm working with, the college students, university students, about how, you know, what happened in the classroom. But of late, because of Zoom and stuff like that, the students I work with actually can come in if their schedule allows to talk with the students, and some of them have taken up on that offer and been able to do that. And then finally, the students actually that I'm working with develop the rubrics and the grading, and actually grade the projects. So that also gives the pre-service teachers that experience of assessment. And so it's so that they're really, really well developed, you know, and the ones that I have listed there linked to are what we feel are high quality works that could be used in a virtual teaching environment. Any other questions or comments or anything? We wish you You will. Angela, are you physically in your space and your students, or are they back and forth? I'm very interested in what the navigation each is doing with this COVID time, back and forth. Yeah, so it sounds like what Jennifer's doing. How about you, Vanessa? Is that about the same for you?
I feel bad. I need to head out quick.
Okay.
It depends on how many students are able to be with us. If we have too many positive cases, then we work remotely. But yeah, source that back and forth as well. A little bit of everything.
Yeah, it's a lot of uncertainty. And so I wish, Vanessa, as you head out, thank you very much. Angela, so much for being here, and keep in touch. I wish you well in your first, oh my goodness, your first year, and this is what you're experiencing. Oh my goodness. Well, there's many years ahead. Okay. There's many years ahead. Thank you, Jill, for moderating and facilitating and making this all happen for us. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we greatly appreciate it. There was a lot of great information, and we hope everybody else enjoyed it as much as I did. And it looks like everybody did sign in the chat roll, so everybody's covered. And just remember to check your email later for the Act 48 link coming soon. And I will take a lot of those links off the chat roll and get them out to participants as well that Karen shared with us tonight. So unless anybody has anything else, then I guess that's a wrap, and I guess we'll call it a night. So good night, everybody, and thank you very much.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.